Hello students, the next concept which we are going to start today is quadratic polynomial. This is the next series of the previous series which we have done, and in the previous series, which was about the polynomials, we have explained about what sort of polynomials are being categorized onto. So this is the second series of that. Okay, so quadratic polynomial somehow looks like this. If anyhow you look onto a matter like this, or to any polynomial or equation like this which gives a value, whether it could be 0 or any number or any other constant, this seems to be a quadratic for us. Okay, now how could we categorize this as a quadratic polynomial is look onto the variable. Whatsoever the highest power is, like if we look onto the variable this onto this variable, this has a power of 1, this has a power or an exponent of 2. So highest power which we noticed in this particular polynomial was 2. So that's how we categorize the degree. Whatsoever is the highest power of any variable to a polynomial is also recommended as the degree. Now the degree of this particular polynomial or equation is 2. What does this degree significance to us? Now degree basically tells us that how many possible roots, solutions, factors or values is this polynomial going to give us. Like we have a variable of x, we have a degree of 2. That actually means that this x has two values. It could be positive, it could be negative, it could be negative, it could be positive, it could be anything. It could be a real number, it could be integer, it could be anything. So we have to keenly observe what the degree is. So today we are going to start about quadratic. We must have to think about the degree every time, because this is the only thing which is going to tell us more than enough things. Okay, so let's start. Look, there are many ways that how to find out the values of x or y, whatsoever is the polynomial's variable. Like in this particular equation, we have a variable of x. It could be y, it could be z. Let's take it as x. So we are going to solve this for x. Okay, now there are many various methodologies with which we solve this. Now the first methodology by which we are going to solve this quadratic is known as splitting the middle term, or in simple terms we call it as factorization. Now factorization itself is a very big concept, but splitting the middle term of this particular polynomial is the easiest one which we have. Okay, so let's take an example of a quadratic and let's understand how to find out the value of x or the variable of the polynomial. Let's say we have x square plus 3x plus 2 equals to 0. Now the question is, we have to find out the value of x by factorizing it, because for the first step which we have to go is to first find out the factors, then we have to move on to the next part, which is finding out the value of x. So keep a check on it. First factors, then we have to move on to the values of the factors. Okay, now let's start splitting the middle term with the method of splitting the middle term. What we have to do in this, we have always to think about ax square plus bx plus c, which is the standard form of a quadratic equation. What next we have to do is we have to multiply this constant and the coefficient of x square. Now think about it. On the rough side, we think that whatsoever we will get is a product of constant and the coefficient of x square. In the polynomial, we have constant and we have coefficient of x square, not of x. Remember this, okay? Coefficient of x square. So either you can multiply both of them and then find out what the factors are, or you can just simply factorize them with the prime factorization method. Like what the value of a have is here in this polynomial, it's 1. Okay, so the polynomial which we are solving right now stands the value of 1 with a, and we have c as 2, which means the constant. Now we have 2 and 1 as c and a. What we have to do here is to multiply both of them and to find out what factors could it give. Like we know that 2 and 1 are the prime factors. We cannot divide them with more factors. They are just independent factors. Okay, so either they could get divided by themselves or by 1. So we cannot factorize them further. Like 2 and 1 are the final factors for us. Now the next step, the first step was to find out the product of C and A. The next step is to find out that whether by using these factors, by using these multiples, could we get this middle term which is the coefficient of x. Okay, remember we have to always target whatsoever is written there with x as a coefficient of x. Like 2 and 1 if being added will give you 3. 2 minus 1 will give you 1. Now we need a 3 here in the middle term as a middle term, and we have two options. Either we can add them means adding both the factors or subtracting both the factors. We could only implement addition or subtraction with the factors. Like we have here 3 after adding 2 and 1. So the best method for us is to add them. Now what has to be implemented when we are finally with the factors which are going to give us 3, which is the middle term as a coefficient of x? What we have to do next is leave space for 3, because now we cannot write 3, we are going to use the factors or the multiples which were there. Okay, write x as it is, write 2, write everything remaining in the polynomial as it was. Now instead of 3, what we are going to write is we are going to use the factors 2 and 1, because 2 plus 1 will give us 3. So we can actually replace 3 by writing 2 plus 1. The first thing which you have to keep very clearly in mind, that you have to use every single factor which we have. Second thing, we have to either add or subtract. This is the only two methodologies with which we can apply splitting the middle term. Now as you can see, the middle term which was 3 has been splitted into 2, because the factors there was 2 and 1. Now what we have to do is simply multiply them, and by multiplying we will get 2x and x, as 2 was outside the bracket, and when the bracket will open we have to multiply 2x and x. Okay, the very next step in which we have to look onto a pair like this and this. We have to find out and check out which one is a common part in this one and in this one. In this we have a common part as x. So taking x as common, what is being left inside the bracket is x, because x into x will make x square, and here in the next part it will be 2. X into plus of 2 will give you 2x. So please check it out once, that whether you have given the right form of taking the common fraction out or not. The next thing which has to be thought is, if there is no such thing common in both the individuals, then we have to take 1 and the rest of the things will be inside the bracket, like x plus 2 equal to 0. Now up to this extent we got one more thing as common, like x plus 2 and x plus 2 you can see as in complete polynomial or in complete equation, x plus 2 is again common. So let's rub this part and do it here. Now what we can do is, x plus 2 as you can see is common to both the parts, and the next which is being left, as we have took x plus 2, extracted x plus 2 from here as common thing, so x will be still here as remaining, this plus will be written as this plus, then 1. So this is how we get to a result of the products. Now as you can see, this is the first factor, this is the second factor which we were looking for. Okay, the first motive of our solving the polynomial was getting onto the factors. Now this is the first factor, this is the second factor. Okay, now how to extract the values out of this factor? The easiest way is, if suppose this is an element A, this is an element B, and as you can see these both are in product form. That means if A and B is being multiplied, it is giving us 0. That means either A is 0 or B is 0, either. Okay, remember this thing, one of this is 0, that's how it will give us a product of 0. Okay, so let's take one assumption as 0, as the first factor as 0, because we know that two things will give 0 after getting multiplied, because one of them would be 0. Okay, so this is how we will further solve this linear equation. This, as you can see, as you can notice, this is now a sort of linear equation. After solving this, what we got is the value of x. So this was the first factor which we have solved. Now the other factor is x plus 1. Assume this also as equals to 0. Okay, it will also be solved as a simple form of linear, and we will get another value after solving the another factor. Okay, so this is how splitting the middle term works. The first step, a and c has to be multiplied. The product of them has to be thought as helping this particular middle term to be splitted. Okay, so this is how we will only this step is there which has the methodology of splitting the middle term, and rest of the things are particularly a very common thing in mathematics, where we have to take common, then we have to assume it as equal to 0, and then we have to take out the values out of those factors. So this is how this concept of splitting the middle term works in a quadratic polynomial. This is one of the methodology which is being implemented in the quadratic polynomial to extract the values out of the factors of any polynomial. Okay students, now we are going to start another question as an example with which we have learned before as splitting the middle term. It goes with the same methodology, how to solve for the value of x. It could be called as the value of x, we call it as the factors of x, the solutions of x, or the roots of x. There are many terms representing what will be the value of x. Okay, so doesn't mind it if in case there is any other terminology being used for the value of x, you could go with the same methodology. Okay, so how to split this with this particular polynomial? Here again we have to think about the standard form of quadratic polynomial, and we have to think about what is the coefficient of x square, which is a. Here it's 1, and c, which is a constant, is plus 4. So when we got these values, we have to take out the factors of these two as a product. Like what we have to do is a into, sorry, this would be c. Okay, now 1 into 4. Now as we know that 4 can even be further factorized as 2 into 2. So now there are three factors, 1 into 2 into 2. As by using these particular factors, what we have to get is plus of 5. Okay, remember the sign is very important, whether it is plus or negative. We have always to be very attentive while solving the sign of the polynomials. Like we have this 2, 2, 4 and 5. What is the target here for us to split it in a way which will give us 5 as a result. So as you know that 2 into 2 will give you 4, and here is 1 as another factor, and after adding them we will get 5. So we can use 5 as a substitute of 4 and 1. Okay, so how we are going to solve this as a splitting the middle term? Write every single thing of the polynomial in the same way as it was, and leave 5 for replacing as it with the factors which we got, as 4 plus 1 are the new factors which will add up and give us 5. Now as you can see, we have splitted this 5 as in 4 plus 1, which are going to give us again as 5. Okay, so we have not manipulated or amended any sort of change here in the polynomial. What we have done is we have slightly changed 5 into 4 plus 1, but still it remains 5 as a total value. Okay, so keep in mind, you need not have to change this value. Remember, it must be 5 always. You cannot go with 6, 7 or 8 or any other thing. Okay, so this is another thing which you have to be cautious about. Let's solve this. As you can see, out of the bracket there is x, and we must multiply this x with first with plus 4, which will give us as 4x, and with plus 1, which will give us x, and the rest of the things will remain the same. Okay, now out of these two, what is common? X. Okay, what is left? One x being extracted out of this multiple, another x will be there, and out of this x was being extracted here, so we will get a 4. Understood? Now out of these, as you can see, there is no such common factor. We will go with 1 as a common factor, in fact plus 1 as a common factor, because both of them is with having a sign of plus. We will get the same thing inside because nothing is common. Okay, now the same thing will happen throughout the polynomial. What we can see is as common, x plus 4 is common throughout the polynomial. So taking x plus 4 as common, what we will get is, now this x is being left and plus then 1, this was being left over. So finally we got two factors. one factor is x plus 4 and another factor is x plus 1. But how to find out the value of these factors which we got as x plus 4 and x plus 1? Okay, so this is a very simple thing. Assume x plus 4 equals to 0 and on another part x plus 1 equals to 0. Now x will give you simple, we have just to solve this as linear form. It will go with x equals to minus 4, we got the first value, and here x equals to minus 1, we got the second value. So this was the first factor, this was the second factor, which from where we have extracted the value of the variable x. So this is how the quadratic works. This is how we find out the value of x from a quadratic polynomial. This is the one methodology which we have discussed today. In the next series or in the next session, we are definitely going to have another methodology how to solve for the variable of x with the quadratic polynomial. Thank you.